All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Week in Review. I apologize, I'm a little bit late here, but I literally had my computer like crashing out, man. Am I muted? Because I should have to mute this tab, and I'm not having. Can you guys hear me? Are you guys getting me? Give me a 5x5 in the chat, because, okay. I am not muted. Okay, good. It said audio playback is not working for some reason, and I'm not sure why that was, but I didn't have to mute the tab on Rumble, which is really weird, because normally I have to mute that tab. Man, guys, there's a lot to talk about this week. Some good, mostly good, actually. Mostly good. There is probably a little bit of bad, I guess. So yeah, there is a lot. And we had the Fauci. Oh, come on. Why is this opening up? We had the Fauci hearing. Well, kind of hearing, I guess. I don't even know what you want to call that. We had the Joe Biden tapes, and then we had a bunch of other stuff that took place this week. So, all right. I am Rumble Alert work today. CJ Cam. That is good to hear. That is good. Hopefully we get a good audience then. That's always a reassuring thing. I saw an article right as I was getting ready to go live that I was like, holy crap, I got to cover this. Just the news, man. What are you guys doing, dude? Sure looks like Just the News is running interference for Netanyahu in the Israeli elections coming up in October. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. All right, let's man, when I tell you that there are literally a ton of tabs open on my stream right now, I'm getting anxiety just looking. I'm like, did I put this all together properly? All right, let's just jump into it. We'll wing it, right? Like Bill O'Reilly says, F it, we'll do it live, right? Let's jump out. We got some new news that we didn't cover this week on Daily, so we'll get into that first here. From Fox News, liberal court stuns with ruling that hands Trump a major immigration W. Big W right here. A liberal-led federal appellate court handed President Trump 2 immigration victories on Wednesday, reversing separate district court orders that delayed the termination of TPS, temporary protected status, they call that, for migrants from South Sudan and Ethiopia. The judgments from the First Circuit Court of Appeals come after U.S. district judges issued back-to-back orders temporarily blocking the Trump administration's termination of TPS for Ethiopia and South Sudan late last week. Now, keep in mind, guys, this has already been determined by SCOTUS. The TPS is not subject to judicial review. This was this was already decided by the Supreme Court in the last docket, the last session that they had. And, you know, we went through on this show, we actually went through the TPS law, I think it's the INA, the Immigration Nationality Act, where TPS is authorized. And it says explicitly in there that the decision by the Department of Homeland Security to terminate TPS or to institute it is not reviewable by a judge. Now, again, you can get into whether or not you should ever be allowed to have a law or, you know, the sections of a law that are beyond review. And, you know, obviously in this case right here, we like that. We like the fact that SCOTUS says that they can't review TPS and destroying it and terminating it. But at the same time, like, what other laws can Congress make and just be like, oh yeah, you know what, we're going to take away the third branch of our government, the judiciary, and we're just going to cut them out of this completely. You know, right now it works for us, but you know what happens in the long run. So The rulings drew sharp criticism from legal experts and Trump administration officials who called the judges, quote unquote, rogue and argued their decision defied the Supreme Court. In nearly identical rulings, the majority liberal panel, found that the lower court judges' orders conflicted with the Supreme Court's decision in Mullen versus Doe. That's the case we were just talking about, which held that courts cannot block TPS terminations based on non-constitutional claims. Now, as Ethiopia and South Sudan are having their TPS terminations permitted to go through, SCOTUS Wire put this out. A federal judge has again blocked the Trump administration from ending TPS status for Somalia, issuing a new administrative stay after plaintiffs filed an amended complaint and emergency motion. Man, now this one is crazy, especially in light of all the Somali fraud that has been exposed over the last, few months, going back to, what was it, probably like March with Nick Shirley when he started doing all this, the Quality Leering Center. And then you've got right here James Percival saying Judge Allison Burroughs just entered yet another order preventing the termination of Somalia TPS. There is no serious debate about what is going on in these cases: defiance, obstruction, and delay. Well, I think maybe perhaps these judges understand that if you all of a sudden make TPS go away for Somalia, and you start closing all of these daycares and these healthcare centers, and and by those I mean they're completely and totally fake. Maybe a couple real customers, maybe, but ultimately they're just ways for people to come into our country and mooch off of our country. And when you look at all of the Somalians in places like Minnesota, you wonder how many of them are. How many of them are citizens at this point? I mean, obviously they've had kids, and this is why the birthright citizenship issue becomes so significant, the SCOTUS decision on that, and whether or not we can get the law passed to start calling immigrants invaders in the Immigration and Nationality Act, so that the Wong Kim Ark case that was the precedent for the most recent SCOTUS decision on birthright citizenship, so that we can actually have that, taken away, the birthright citizenship. Because basically the judges said that Wong Kim Ark said, the previous precedent said that they're born here, so they're allowed to be here because the Immigration Nationality Act says invaders. You can't give birthright citizenship to invaders. That's one of the stipulations. And by not calling them invaders, they're basically saying Wong Kim Ark kind of still stands. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot more on this. It's crazy to me how the First Circuit Court of Appeals could, say that the district courts are out of line with Ethiopia and South Sudan based on the Mullen versus Doe decision at SCOTUS, but then turn around and say, well, Somalia, we're gonna stop that one. Like, really? I mean, that should be overturned next week. Any appellate court is going to look at that and say, this is clearly politicized, weaponized, whatever you want to call it, protecting interests, perhaps. Either way, two big victories followed by a loss right there. Now, I do just briefly, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and play this clip here. Speaking of Minnesota, President Trump had his cabinet meeting yesterday, and in that meeting, he had this little jab right here at Governor Walz, which, by the way, listen to what he says about Iran in this clip.
Today, I just want to mention that we heard in Minnesota there was a cyber attack, and they blame it on Iran. I don't think so. I blame it on Minnesota because they're grossly incompetent. There was a cyber attack of 30 water plants, and I would blame it on Minnesota and the governor, the corrupt governor of Minnesota. They like to say, oh, it was Iran. Iran should be so lucky. Iran's got bigger problems than worrying about Minnesota.
So, I mean, they're clearly giving President Trump an opportunity here to, go all in on Iran. Yeah, it was totally Iran that did this. It was Iran that, that cyber, I guess they hacked these water treatment facilities, which, by the way, man, that you want to talk about something that is legitimately something to worry about. That is one thing that always scares me. And I, I don't give it too much thought, but if you wanted to, attack this country, that's how you would do it. Things like that through, during the Biden administration, we saw the food processing and chicken farms and everything else getting burned down, food plants and distribution centers being burned down. You start attacking infrastructure like that, where people become dependent on, we're dependent on food from outside agencies, from, corporations and everything that provide food. Same thing with water, and that's government infrastructure. And again, how secure is that infrastructure when it gets down to government level? Because, we've talked about with elections, they just simply don't have the resources to deal with nation state actors when they attack elections. So what's going to happen when they start transitioning towards attacking water? And I'm sure they do this. I'm sure there's attacks all over the place, whether they're just kind of doing perimeter testing to see if they can get in, that kind of stuff. But that is definitely something that is a little bit concerning there. But President Trump has an opportunity to throw it at Iran, and instead he cast it at Governor Walz in Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, you're like, well, he's saying that Iran's got their hands full, so they don't have the ability to do this. Well, I mean, that's how you would do it, right? If you're at war with Iran and Iran wants to go on the offensive, that's perhaps how you would go on the offensive. You start attacking American infrastructure remotely from wherever the attacks came from. But Trump's like, no. It was in Minnesota. It was their complacency, their lack of safeguards. And again, let's apply that to elections. Perhaps that's kind of what he's gearing up for right there, that it's not always foreign interference. That's what we want to run to all the time. We want to blame the foreign interference because, well, that creates a scapegoat that you can't really go after, right? What are we going to do to go after Iran for, attacking water plants? Obviously, we're bombing the shit out of them right now. But what are you going to do beyond that, right? What are you going to do beyond where we're at right now? So the same thing with the China. When they say China interfered in our elections by hacking our infrastructure, well, we kind of allowed it through Connick and Eugene Yu and the story that we told up there in Michigan. We those are contracts that they have with state agencies. And so, is it really the foreign state? We blame it the foreign state because, well, what are you going to do about that? There's no accountability when China hacks our elections. We can't do anything. I mean, we're going to sanction them? Sure. We're already sanctioned. We already sanctioned them. Are we going to, and by the way, we want trade with China. So Iran's a different story because, when I said we sanctioned them, I'm sure we've got some sanctions. Iran is what I was meaning when I said we already sanctioned them. So what else are we going to do? Bomb the shit out of them because they allegedly attacked water plants in Minnesota? President Trump coming out and saying, nah, it wasn't them. It wasn't them is very interesting to me. Let's stay on the foreign topics here, and I'm kind of going through these. We'll go a little more in depth with these on Monday's Daily Show. From Just the News, as Trump thanks Qatar for Hamas disarmament, Israel's past approval of aid to Hamas-run Gaza emerges. And immediately I saw this and I was like, oh, this is something Ghost and I have talked about for a long time. And then Just the News completely swings and misses at this story. Complete swing and a miss. They write here on Thursday, President Trump announced on Truth Social the, quote, complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza, end quote, calling the news a monumental step towards lasting peace and security. And this was through the Board of Peace. Me and Chris Paul covered this on Friday. Disarming them, it's going to take 250 days. Zero chance, in my opinion, unfortunately, that this is actually going to come to fruition because Israel needs that boogeyman, right? They need the enemy states in their region to continue their narrative, the warpath narrative. In his post, Trump thanked 3 countries for mediating the disarmament: Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. Qatar's inclusion in the mediation is curious, given the country's recent history in the region. Just days before Trump's announcement, Former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett posted on X that, quote, Qatar bears responsibility for the October 7th massacre. Well, that's really interesting. That's also something Ghost and I have talked about quite a bit. Now, it says, quote, Qatar financed October 7th. It continues to host and provide sanctuary in Doha to the leaders of the terrorist organization to this very day. Bennett wrote, they've never condemned the October 7th massacre. Instead, they celebrated the slaughter and murder and rape of Israeli civilians on October 7th. Yet, as New York Post foreign policy and national security reporter Caitlin Dornbos pointed out on X, Bennett oversaw a deal between the United Nations and Qatar to provide aid to Gaza while he was prime minister in 2021. That deal would allow Qatar to send cash payments to families in Gaza. Then Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz said that Israel would be, quote, overseeing the recipients. Another agreement between Qatar and the United Nations signed in March of 2022 provided more than $380 million worth of fuel to Gaza. The 2021 deal occurred just 1 week before Bennett flew to D.C. to meet with Joe Biden. There's one thing missing from the entirety of that article, and that is any mention whatsoever of Benjamin Netanyahu. No mention of Netanyahu in the entire article. Now, here's why it's really important that you bring in Netanyahu into this discussion. And we actually talked about this article right here. We talked about this article this week on Badlands Daily. I think it might have been on Thursday, maybe Wednesday. I'm not sure. This was from August of 2024. Time fact checks Netanyahu interview, countering his denial of bankrolling Hamas. So jump down here a little bit. Qatar began funneling money to Hamas in 2007. So why is Israeli news reporting it was 2007 and just the news only goes back to 2021? That's really interesting. So Qatar began funneling money to Hamas in 2007 during the term of Netanyahu's predecessor, Ehud Olmert. However, Olmert did not directly facilitate the funds, as opposed to Netanyahu. So Olmert did not directly facilitate the funds, but Netanyahu did. In 2018, the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas stopped paying salaries for Palestinian Authority government workers in Gaza. The Netanyahu-led government transferred the Qatari funds in suitcases full of cash. Suitcases full of cash. Ghost and I have talked about this. That's the exact term Ghost uses. Suitcases full of cash. They literally walked it into Gaza. When Netanyahu was briefly out of power in 2021 and 2022, ironically, the only period that Just the News mentions in their article, then Prime Minister Naftali Bennett stopped sending the suitcases, though he allowed Qatar's cash to continue flowing through other means. The catch here is not that Bennett was doing it through the UN. Is that despicable? Yes, I think it is. But when he was doing it through the UN, the guise of the UN was under the Gaza, I think it was like the humanitarian fund or something like that. It was all supposed to be for aid, food, fuel, those kinds of things. With Netanyahu, it was not. This was Qatar, suitcases of cash, given to Netanyahu's government. Netanyahu handed it over into the Strip. They completely missed the whole point of that whole series of events. Going back to 2007, Just the News only highlighted 2021. Very disappointed in Just the News. Now, granted, I understand the influence that, a lot of this has on the media. I totally get that. Totally get that. You just like to think that honest journalism goes a little bit above that. Netanyahu had reportedly said at a Likud faction meeting in 2019 that anyone who opposes a Palestinian state should support the funds for Hamas, the enemy of the Fatah-run Palestinian Authority. Netanyahu replied, quote, "That's a false statement. I never said that." Well, as the Times noted, besides the numerous reports of the 2019 comments, Netanyahu had reportedly said the same in a 2012 interview with journalist Dan Margalit. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich also made the claim in a 2015 interview. So it's the whole, kind of faction there. Here's another Times of Israel story about this. This one's back in 2018. Palestinian Authority fumes as suitcases of cash, gangster Qatari cash, reaches Gaza in a bid to ease crisis. So just the news is completely, whether deliberately or not, they do cite a New York Post article, and New York Post is full-blown in bed with the Zionist regimes. So there is that. There's no question about that. But, yeah, I was a little disappointed in that. I mean, this is something, let me see if I can find the post here real quick. I know I have a draft post. I can show you the draft post. I'm working on a little bit of I'm working on it a little bit. So I'll show you guys just the draft post in the meantime. Actually, no, I don't need to show you the draft post. I can show you the post of that I've shared this post numerous times. And yeah, let me go ahead and pull this up. Bear with me for 2 seconds. All right, so this was a post that I made back in October 29th, 2023. So 16 days. Math is not my, no. October 7th, 22 days, excuse me. Math is not my strong point this morning. 22 days after October 7th, Ghost, you mean Netanyahu and the Israeli government propped up Hamas to suit their political and financial needs, and the trained dog bit them? Only this dog was actually trained to bite its owner? Sounds familiar. The people of Israel need to be equally pissed at their own government for creating the petri dish that yielded this terrorist group. And this is from @RealBen on X. He put out this meme. I've shared this meme many, many times, and it's just clippings of the times in which it's been reported about Netanyahu's funding and support for Hamas. Haaretz, anyone, quote, anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. Netanyahu told his Likud party's Knesset members in March of 2019, this is part of our strategy. WikiLeaks, U.S. cables show how Israel facilitated the birth of Hamas in order to marginalize the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO. WikiLeaks again, Israeli Defense Intelligence Chief Amos Yadlin in 2007, quote, Israel would be happy if Hamas took over Gaza because IDF could then deal with Gaza as a hostile state. It's exactly what they've wanted to happen. Going on to downplay significance of Iran in Gaza, quote, as long as they don't have a port. Lieberman, Netanyahu sent Mossad head general to Qatar, begged it to pay Hamas. That was in 2020, February of 2020. Israeli Beitenu party leader says that the pair were sent by Prime Minister 2 weeks ago to convince Doha not to end its money transfers to the Gaza-based terror group. That's from the Times of Israel. Now, granted, I totally understand there's going to be political factions, much like we have here. There's going to be the same kind of Fox News versus MS Now, and I would assume, in terms of left versus right, MS Now would probably be more, or Times of Israel would probably be more aligned with the MS Now side or CNN side, as opposed to, maybe Jerusalem Post would be more, I think Jerusalem Post would be more Fox. I'm not sure. That's kind of Ghost's, wheelhouse right there. So I'll leave that out. But here's the crazy part about this is just the news is putting this out as Netanyahu is going into the fight for his life in October. He's up for re-election in October. And Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister from 2021-2022, is one of the people that's running against him. Now, again, I want to be perfectly clear. Neither one of them, in my opinion, are a good choice to lead Israel. And that's not to say that neither one of them, would, I don't know, be a good prime minister or whatnot. I think that the corruption in there goes well beyond just the leadership within government, right? I think we could all understand the grips that Mossad and the Shin Bet have on a lot of these terrorist organizations, the Houthis, Hamas, Iran, the IRGC. You know, whether you want to get into what was his name? Oh my goodness. Well, Soleimani for first and foremost. You know, me and Ghost have talked about that on Daily before, about whether or not Soleimani was a Mossad asset in the IRGC, because when Trump was ready to pull the trigger on him, Israel was supposed to be the ones pulling the trigger, and they backed out at the last minute, and Trump was like, screw it, we're doing it, and they were mad. They were mad. They were big mad that we took out Soleimani. And who was the other one? The former president that just came out. I keep wanting to say Aragshi, but that's the foreign minister. What the heck is his name? And I keep wanting to go. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now, and I should because I've talked about him so much over the last couple months. But anyways, he came out as a Mossad guy. As Mossad, the Israeli intelligence wanted him to be the president that replaced Pezeshkian, that took over and led Iran, you know, following the death of the Ayatollah. So again, it's very interesting. Perhaps Medbeds, happy birthday. Perhaps Netanyahu, just the news is trying to drum up Netanyahu because he is the person that Trump is most able to, quote unquote, control in all of this. We'll go to this clip here of this is an older clip from about a month ago with Netanyahu talking about giving F-35s to Turkey.
President Trump is in Turkey right now. He said this morning he will consider selling F-35 fighter jets to Turkey, which is a reversal of a ban he put in place. You said yesterday that would, quote, upset the power balance in the Middle East. Have you made that clear to President Trump?
Yes, I have. Actually, spoke to him several times about it. And I think that everybody understands that notwithstanding the personal friendship that President Trump has with Erdogan, it doesn't make Turkey a friendly or a friendly state to the United States. To the contrary, it's a regime that's infected with the Muslim Brotherhood, which hates the United States.
British intelligence, Muslim Brotherhood, British intelligence.
He harbors Hamas, the Hamas terrorists. He supports.
Funded by Netanyahu. Keep going. So just wait until we find an organic movement here.
He finances them. He's thrown his opponents in jail, all of them. He throws more journalists in jail than anyone can understand. So he's not exactly.
Again, all intelligence. When you're trying to start a coup, when you look at the Maidan, how in Ukraine in 2014, 2015, when you look at how that all began, it started with journalists. It started with 3 news agencies that popped up out of nowhere in November of, I think it was 2015, might be in 2014, I can't remember, but popped up in November. 3 news outlets, all of them pushing the Maidan coup.
A model ally of the United States. But even worse than that, he threatens Greece, a NATO ally. He occupies half of Cyprus, another NATO country. And the most important thing, and I put it right on the table, he threatens to destroy my country, the one and only Jewish state.
President said this morning.
Okay, so we can land that there because then we get this comment here from President Trump. When asked about whether or not President Trump is going to supply Turkey with F-35s, which I believe they've already purchased.
Prime Minister Netanyahu does disagree with you on the F-35s to Turkey. Are you going to tell Prime Minister Netanyahu opposes sending F-35s to Turkey? Are you going to tell him?
Look, Turkey's been a great ally for me. You know, I think he's done a very good job. Did a good job with Syria. He's a friend of mine, and nobody tells me what we should be selling and not. Turkey's been a tremendous ally for me. It was up to Turkey. Turkey's not a big fan of Israel. You know that, right? And not a big fan of Bibi. But he is. They've been great for me. Turkey has been great. Very powerful country, by the way. Tremendous military. Very big military. Very powerful military. Has a lot of great equipment.
Does Netanyahu want you to strike a deal on Iran, or does he want you to keep attacking?
Bibi has been great. I'm not going to say it. He was a wartime prime minister. did very well together. And if you look at Iran now, they're 8% of what they were 4 months ago. They're 8% of what they were 4 months ago. So we'll see how this all comes out. Okay?
So President Trump, they're saying that, nobody tells him what to do. He's going to make the sales. I want to look something up real quick. That 8% was a very interesting number. And I want to see. Let's see. All right, so as of late July 2026, the two are tied at 38% each. So that's I'm looking at the polling on Netanyahu in his primary against Eisenkot. Gadi Eisenkot is who he's primarying against. Let me see where Bennett's. Okay, Bennett's down around between 10.9 and 31%. They have Bennett at. That's interesting. Okay, so I don't want to get too crazy into all of that stuff, but there is like something going on here, and I think this is something. Again, Ghost has called this for quite some time. That you're going to see an expansion of the Ukraine-Russia war and the Israel-Iran war. I know U.S. is involved in it, but the U.S.-Israeli-Iran war, and I don't want to put anybody on particular sides in that statement. But here is Fox News talking about Zelensky and Netanyahu for the first time coming together in D.C. for the funeral of Lady Lindsay.
Both Ukrainian President Zelensky and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu requested meetings with President Trump while they were in town for Lindsey Graham's funeral. Fox is told the talks were more of a catch-up than anything else, but the topic of Iran loomed over both. Tonight,
I'm sure it was just a catch-up. I'm sure that's all it was going to be was a catch-up. Oh, come on. Am I going to lose this? Oh, okay, there we go. I got it. Because I thought this was epic. Me and Ash tried to do like a comical reading of this week, but this was Netanyahu and Zelensky meeting, and here's the captions here. Tell me what you want. How can I help, Zelensky? Well, to be honest, I need a little bit of cocaine. You got cocaine? Whoa. I guess I can get you a little bit. Good. Go get it. Like right now? Please. Dude, we're at a funeral. Go get some coffee. You look like shit. Okay, I get coffee. But you get me cocaine? Little bit of cocaine? Yeah. Get you a little bit of cocaine. You are a minx. You're actually taller than I imagined. I seriously thought you were just a midget. Absolutely epic. I wear special boots. I want to correct that and put the the DeSantis boots in there. I want to correct that. All right, so a little bit of fun, just having a little bit of fun there. Okay. Bro. Medbeds. Yo, break me off, bro. I got you next week. You holding? Yo, I'm trying to score, man. You got any of that booger sugar? Let's go. Little Zelensky. All right, so I think that's actually pretty much it for. Oh, so okay. I want to go back. I haven't talked about this all week. The Ukraine, Israel, Russia, Iran, Turkey, I think will get thrown into that. Greece might get thrown into it. Greece is in bad shape because Greece is like way in debt. Super duper inflation. And so I don't think you're going to see anything too much from Greece in the way of a conflict here. But I mean, you saw Ukraine earlier this week attacking Iranian ships in the Caspian Sea and killing sailors on those ships. And so you got to look at this and wonder, and again, Ghost has speculated that this would happen, where you see kind of an alliance, an alignment between Israel and Ukraine. And if you needed any proof of that, all you got to do is go look at Laura Loomer's X posts over the last week or so. She goes and does this interview with Zelensky. She comes out and she's like, I've completely changed my mind about Zelensky. I now support fully the Nazi Azov battalion. What do they call him? The Banderas, going to Stephen Banderas, the Nazi from, man, my Ukraine history is getting weak here. Anyways, is it the Banderites? Is it the Banderites? Anyways, the whole Azov battalion, we've talked about this ad nauseum over the last 3 or 4 years, are full-blown Nazis, like clear. And now you're seeing Laura Loomer out there siding with the Nazis. The loudest Jewish voice on X out there siding with the Nazis, saying Zelensky completely changed my mind. I totally misunderstood this guy. If you needed any more proof that you're going to see some sort of an emergence, how did we not see this coming? Oh man, Bandera, Spotzel, thank you, Bandera. My Ukrainian history is a little bit wishy-washy right now. I've got a lot going on in this brain. Can't remember everything. So yeah, if you needed any more proof that this war was going to expand, or they're going to attempt to expand it, look no further than Laura Loomer's X. And she has been relentless on X over the last maybe week or so. So, all right, let's lighten it up a little bit here before we get crazy. Tony Romo gets a DUI, and then they release the body cam footage. And let me just play this one clip, because I thought this was hilarious and tragic at the same time, but hilarious.
Any head injuries?
Excuse me?
Any head injuries recently? Any concussions?
Well, over the years, yes, but not recently. No.
Tony Romo, any head injuries? And he's like, excuse me? Do you know who I am? Have you ever seen what I do for a living? Have you ever seen me laying on my back just like, I just got pile drived by Derek Brooks. I think he was still around when Derek Brooks was playing. I just got slammed by DeMarcus Ware, although most of his career, I think Ware was on his team, so you don't have to worry about that. I thought that was really crazy. Let me find this post right here. So I just want to point this out, man. Like, I'm all for accountability when you do something. A DUI, sure, it's a pretty serious thing. You could definitely cause a lot of harm. Now, I looked at the video. I watched the video. Tony Romo was not obliterated drunk. He was not slurring his words. He was not, he was not smashed. I don't know what he ended up blowing on the breathalyzer. I don't know if that's been released publicly or not yet, but you can see he's cognitive. He kind of mixes up some words here and there. That could be somebody that has a concussion. I do that all the time. If they ever ask me to do a field sobriety test, like the walking thing, my equilibrium is shot. From having my brain rattled from explosions. So I totally get that. They have them do all these weird ass like sobriety moves, like low crawling, basically all these weird things. So again, CBS put this out and said they placed him on leave. They placed lead NFL analyst Tony Romo on leave on Friday, over 1 week after he was arrested in Wisconsin, accused of operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Okay. Man, look, guys, accountability. I'm for it. I'm for it. If he pulled over and he was like, "Oh, sure. Hey, how you doing? Oh, no. I'm not. If he was all over the place, sure. Huge threat. He was not at all. Came from a golf tournament, probably had a few beers while he was playing golf, whatever. At one point, she's like, there's shooters in your bag. And he's like, yeah, they're all sealed. They're all sealed. that kind of thing. Look, Brooks and Romo both played during 03 to 08. Thank you. I knew I was right. Derek Brooks, man, that guy is freaking scary. Me and Cam were talking about him on Y Chromes last week. Tony Romo, I hated Tony Romo as a player. Hated him. Did not like Tony Romo. I hate the Cowboys generally. Sorry, Denise Ann, if you're out there. I hate the Cowboys generally. So I did not like Tony Romo whatsoever. He could ball. Guy was pretty good. He is the best announcer I've ever heard. I would listen to a game with Tony Romo over anybody else, bar none. Troy Aikman, fundamentally retarded. Chris Collinsworth, if I have to hear his scratchy-ass voice for more than another season or two, I might just stop watching Monday Night Football. He is atrocious. Tom Brady, boring. He's got good insight, but he's boring. Tony Romo is the best announcer on television. All sports. I'm talking all sports. Like, you listen to Tony Romo calling a game, and you're thinking beyond just like watching the game. You start engaging with the game. He'll be like, oh, this is going to be a run pass option. You're going to see an RPO here. And he's calling every play before it happens. Not every play, but a lot of them. I'm telling you right now, CBS, if I was Romo, I'd be like, look, don't put me on leave. Either fire me or give me my job back, because he will get picked up instantly. We've all seen the DUI. We saw what that cop made him do for his road sobriety. We saw it. He wasn't smashed. I'm not gonna pretend like we're all angels and we don't do anything wrong. All right? He's not a cop. If he was a cop, I could see you putting him on leave because you're in a position of public trust. If he was a politician, you're in a position of public trust. He's an announcer. Okay, imagine what would happen if all of you guys got fired from your job because during your off time, you were I don't know, you got caught doing something, a misdemeanor. Jixie says he was trashed. He was absolutely not trashed. I watched the whole thing from the bridge to where they moved him underground. I watched the whole thing. He was not trashed. He had a buzz, for sure. He had some words where he was, getting a little bit, you could tell that he was getting a little there. He was not trashed. And, I'm telling you, that's crazy. And he cooperated with police. He was very nice with the police. I thought it was great. Larry, that's a great point. Larry says, $5 rant, thank you so much. Says, why not leave Romo on the air and you could talk about it and bring awareness, whether guilty or innocent? Fact. Jixer Trickster. He's a total drunk. Careful, you're defaming now. Has been driving drunk for years, but hasn't got caught? That's interesting. Many years of practice, CannCon. You can't practice drunk driving. All right. Anyways, somebody will pick him up. Again, I don't think that would warrant that. Here, hold on. Let me pull it back up. We can watch a minute or two of it.
But not recently. No, we're good.
Okay. When you turn, keep the front lead foot on the line.
Sorry, 1 second.
And turn by taking...
Now, keep in mind, this is a guy that's had back surgeries, concussions, ankle injuries, knee injuries, all sorts of injuries, and they're making him do that. I've never seen anybody have to do this for a breathalyzer, or for field sobriety. Now, granted, I don't watch Cops or anything like that, so I don't know, but...
A series of small steps with the other foot.
Yep.
I'm going to demonstrate with 3.
Yes, thank you.
You will do 9, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Just sitting in there. Sorry, guys, 2 back
1,
surgeries. But that's all right.
2. You
Trying not to...
willing to submit to a PBT?
What is that?
Machine that you blow in?
It's a preliminary.
It does not determine the results of
Oh,
my
no,
test.
we're not doing that.
Okay.
I've already heard from all the lawyers, don't ever do that.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're not going to do that.
Okay. All right, sir.
Did I pass this test?
You turn around.
No, I didn't, huh?
I mean, he's not slurring his words.
Because there's a plane taking off.
You're
my
under
parents are
arrest
there.
for
Okay.
operating
We'll
while
get to
under
that
the
in just one
influence.
moment.
He's not slurring his words. His responses, he's cooperating. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not there on it. But I digress. Let's move on from this. We don't need to talk about Tony Romo. Oh, man. Hold on. I got to clean up here. Like I said, I've got so much stuff lined up for today that I want to clean up my desktop as we go through. Okay. Let's go ahead and jump into this clip here of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Trump's been saying this. Eliminate the filibuster. If you don't eliminate the filibuster, the next party. And here we have somebody that could potentially be running for president in 2028. Saying the quiet part out loud.
We need to revisit the Electoral College. We need to revisit the point of expanding the court to 13 justices like we have 13 district courts.
We have like 90 district courts. I think we have 89 district courts, by the way, Kamala. You're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. You went to law school. You were an attorney general in California, the largest state in the union. You were the quote-unquote attorney general, elected, quote-unquote elected attorney general. You should know that we have 13 appellate courts and 89 district courts. You should know that. You should know this is fundamental. But again, these people aren't actually serious people. They're just talking heads that are placed there by their globalist commanders.
We need to revisit, if they so want, statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C.
All the talking points, man.
If we regain control of the Senate, I served on this committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee.
By the way, she's slurring her words way more than Tony Romo was.
When I was in the Senate, only the second black woman elected to the United States Senate after Carol Moseley Braun. And the Senate Judiciary Committee has the power to create rules for its committee that don't have to go to the whole Senate for a vote and worry about filibuster and all of that.
Saying the quiet part out loud. Pack the courts. 13 justices. They need another one? Why? Why do they need another one? Why do they need to expand it from 9 to 13? Oh, because those 4 justices that you expand it by would give them the majority. That's why. I mean, they're saying the quiet parts out loud. And again, is this how they drum up their base? The same way that for years now, conservatives have been like, they're going to do this if we don't get this. They're going to pack the courts. They're going to do this. The same way that they've been saying that conservatives have been saying that, they've been saying we're going to do it. Now they haven't done it yet. So again, to be perfectly clear here, this could just very much be banter, right? Spoetzel, spot on, 7-6 from 6-3. It's 6-3 right now. They want 7-6, and they'll actually get 9-1 in 9-4, excuse me, in a lot of situations because Barrett and Kavanaugh are kind of wishy-washy, man. They're kind of wishy-washy, and Thomas ain't going to be around forever. Gorsuch, we had the scare of him resigning a couple weeks ago, retiring a couple weeks ago, and I mean, these aren't spring chickens. Roberts has got to be getting up there. I mean, Kavanaugh's pretty young. Not Gorsuch. Was it Gorsuch? No, not Gorsuch. Wow. Why is my brain is not working this morning? The one from Pennsylvania. Why is my brain not working? Alito, thank you. I'm sorry. Samuel Alito. Thomas is no spring chicken. Alito's no spring chicken. Gorsuch is still pretty young. I love Gorsuch. My favorite justice on the court. Not that we should, and maybe because I read Overruled. It's probably because I read Overruled. Roberts will never retire. Roberts will die in chamber. Thomas is the oldest justice, yes. You got some Democrats that are getting up there. Sotomayor's no spring chicken either. Kagan's up there. Yeah, you know. All right. So they're saying the quiet parts out loud there. That's no surprise. We're going to talk about elections. We're going to talk about Biden, and we're going to talk about the Fauci hearing as well. But I'm trying to get to stuff that we haven't discussed all that much. Oh, we did get, there it is, guys. We got more confirmation that Mitch McConnell is quote unquote alive. More proof of life. Couldn't care less. Couldn't care less. Dead, alive, whatever he is, could not care less. Here's another interesting, we'll stick on the courts here. From legal insurrection, another win for Trump. Court strikes down Illinois' in-state tuition benefits for illegal aliens. And my highlights went away here, but this case basically says that you cannot have a law, there it is, you cannot have a law that benefits an illegal or an immigrant unless that law is equally expanded to all American citizens first. So it says here from legal insurrection, Illinois laws, plural, allowed illegal aliens to qualify for reduced in-state tuition rates and other benefits, including scholarships. Meanwhile, American citizens from other states were not offered these same reduced tuition rates and benefits. Federal law bars states' education benefits on any illegal alien based on residence unless the same benefit is available to all U.S. citizens and nationals, irrespective of residency. The DOJ challenged 3 Illinois programs benefiting undocumented students, the RISE Act, or the Retention of Illinois Students and Equity Act, which provides state financial aid, the Illinois DREAM Act, which funds privately financed scholarships, and the 2003 Acevedo Acts in state tuition provisions. Jump down here a little bit, and it says the state had asked the court to dismiss the case, arguing that the federal law violates the anti-commandeering doctrine. However, Judge Dugan found the federal law, quote, does none of these things. However, rather, he held that 8 U.S.C. 1623A is a valid exercise of federal preemption authority. Quote, put simply, U.S. citizens or nationals must be treated no worse than illegal aliens. It's the 5th state now to lose that battle. 4 similar lawsuits, Texas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Nebraska, have resulted in favorable orders striking down analogous laws that gave reduced tuition to illegal aliens. Lawsuits remain pending across the country in Minnesota, Virginia, California, New Jersey, Kansas, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Maryland, and now also in Colorado. It's interesting that Illinois is the first of the blue states in which this has been challenged in, but first it was challenged in 4 red states, Texas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. From there, it moves on to the quote-unquote blue states, Minnesota, Virginia, California, New Jersey, Kansas. Well, Kansas is a red state, allegedly. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, and Colorado. Again, I don't know any of those states, what color they actually are, or that it even matters whatsoever. But, yeah, so there's another decision right there that's, kind of tapping into the equal protection, giving Americans benefits. I don't think any illegal should be getting benefits like that. Perhaps if we stop incentivizing illegals to cross our border, perhaps they'll stop crossing our border. If we stop giving them Medicaid and stop giving them SNAP benefits and general welfare benefits and quality learning centers for everybody, daycares where all of their illegal immigrant families can all accommodate in one particular neighborhood and just go to one house, and everybody can have a house, and you can have the same kids going to every single house and getting $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year to watch your children, And that is exactly why they shot down the TPS Somalia eliminating that. Because when those people leave, and by the way, man, I think how long, let me see, how long has Somalia had TPS? How long has Somalia had TPS protection? I think it's probably been about 25 years. 35 years. For 35 years. So you've got now generations that have rooted here because of birthright citizenship. So they were first given it in 1991 following the Civil War. By the way, that was a plan. 35 years. It was set for expire. The official end of the designation was set for March 17th of 2026. Of course, they challenged that, and they're trying to get that overturned now. And so you now have a situation where these Somalis have been here for 35 years. Some of them. They've had children. And at this point, their children have had children. And if you're going out on a limb here, some of their children could have had children. 35 years, in a community where, they're kind of on a different level in terms of, you got to go to college and now all this before you start having kids at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, they could be having kids. So there is a possibility. You have parents coming here, having kids, now U.S. citizens. Those kids grew up to 18, 19 years old, had kids, and those kids grew up to, there's probably some cases where 15, 16-year-olds get pregnant and have a kid. So you've now got grandbabies that are anchored here in the United States. And so when TPS Somalia, and others, I'm picking on Somalia because that's the one that's subject to this case right now. When that gets overturned, what's going to happen now? Well, Grandma and Grandpa got to go. Mom and Dad got to go. They got to go back to Somalia. So what do the kids do? Well, we're going to stay here in the United States. Okay, perhaps. But you're going to be taking away a big chunk of that population and moving them back home. We can't. 35 years, guys. TPS. 35 years is too much. Too much. We found out, the Haiti thing, same thing. Nicaragua, same thing. Venezuela, same thing. Cuba. All of it. It's got to end, man. It's got to end. We got to take care of American citizens first, period. Where am I? I am all over the place. Oh, here's another immigration story right here from SCOTUS Wire. In a 2-1 vote, the Ninth Circuit ruled that individuals who entered the U.S. illegally but were later arrested inside the country generally cannot be placed in mandatory detention while fighting deportation, deepening a circuit split on this issue. This is counter to Clarence Thomas's statements during the dissent in the birthright citizenship. It says here, the majority concluded that the mandatory detention statute applies to immigrants seeking entry at the border, while those arrested later inside the U.S. fall under a different law that allows bond hearings. Judge Bay dissented, arguing that the immigrants who entered the U.S. without admission are legally considered, quote, applicants for admission, making them subject to the law requiring detention without bond. That the ruling means immigrants who entered the U.S. illegally but are later arrested inside the country generally cannot automatically be held without bond in the Ninth Circuit. So it only applies to those states that were pictured there. Let me see if I can find this quote here from Thomas in his dissent in that case, because he basically says that they don't have due process rights the same way that you or I would as citizens. I know Ash had posted it and I can't find it. That's not it. Nope. That's not it either. Man, that sucks. But it was in that dissent. Ash posted the clip from it. Yeah, I can't find it. I should have had that ready. There was a lot going on. Spoetzel, get out of here. Princess Bride was not better than Zoolander. Not even close. Like, Princess Bride isn't even a top 10 comedy, and Zoolander is. So there you go. All right, we talked about that. I'm just making sure that Yeah, we could talk about this story here. So let's play this clip here. This was Ruben Gallego, Senator Gallego, who's in a world of trouble right now. This was him talking about SNAP benefits being cut and the effects that this is going to have on people.
These are the kind of stores I grew up with too, and they were very essential. But what people forget, it's like when prices go up, people still eat. They just make different choices. Sure. And sometimes they go for the cheaper stuff that's more processed, which is not necessarily good for your health, or they go for the stuff that's going to last long because you don't want it to go bad. Right. Or like you said, you're not going to make your morning pancakes with your kids anymore. Now you're going to go do cereal instead, right? Because that's cheaper. Yes. And that's why the double effect of two things. Number one, the price of food going up. I luckily can't afford it, but I have 3 kids, and that's still really expensive. I can't imagine what these working families are doing right now, especially in this neighborhood that's all working people. And then number 2, these cuts to SNAP. These are people, these are Americans that have been using SNAP benefits to basically be able to sustain themselves right now. And because of paperwork, we've lost so many people, and it's going to start affecting both them, and it affects your business because we want more competition. Paperwork. Absolutely. And if you go out of business, then it's going to be only one more grocery store, one less grocery store. And I don't live too far from this neighborhood, but the nearest grocery store is probably going to be the Food City that's about 3 miles away. Yes. And for a neighborhood that doesn't have that many people with cars too, so that's right. So I mean, a lot of that. What I'm trying to do is try to change what's happening with the cost of everything. But everything is more expensive. For example, if you have this has any type of aluminum in it whatsoever. Aluminum is now more expensive because we have a tariff on it. If you have, for example, let's see, anything with tomatoes, you pick something with tomatoes.
Okay, so we can pause that right there. So Gallego's making the argument that by cutting SNAP. By cutting SNAP, we are essentially raising prices on groceries. Now, that is not at all true. That is not at all true. And we've talked about this on the show. We've talked on this show specifically, but on a lot of our shows, we've talked about this. And I want to go, I think this is still, to this day, I think this is one of the best articles that I've seen written in terms of expressing this. From Zero Hedge, when government subsidies stopped, Doritos got 15% cheaper from February of 2026. And I'm going to read this again. I think this is worthy rehash in light of what Gallego is claiming there, because it's not. And I do have a little bit of sympathy for the small mom and pop grocery stores because they are victims of mega corporations that are in bed with the government and have been using the government as essentially their own piggy bank, basically. PepsiCo spent $2.8 million last year lobbying to keep junk food eligible for food stamps. But last week, after HHS Secretary RFK Jr. got 18 states to ban SNAP purchases of products like soda, candy, and processed snacks, PepsiCo announced price cuts of up to 15% on Doritos, Lay's, Tostitos, and other Frito-Lay products. The company's official explanation was affordability. CEO Ramon Laguarta cited low-income consumers are switching to store brands. Now, before I keep going, I didn't know that store brands are typically made on the same assembly line as the major brands. They're made at the same plants, typically. Oftentimes, they have the same standards. Oftentimes, they go above and beyond, but they don't have the major marketing value. Like, they don't have to spend. You don't see Publix brand soda being advertised. Publix advertised, but not Publix brand soda. So Pepsi is spending millions, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions every year on advertising, marketing, sponsorships, all these things. These store brands don't have to do that. They're just there as the alternative, and they're cheaper. And guess what? People are turning to them because they don't want to pay, $12 for a 12-pack of soda when you could get the Publix brand for $4. Duh. Make these corporations feel the pain. SNAP food stamps is a $100 billion per year program serving 42 million people. 20 cents of every SNAP dollar goes to sweetened beverages, candy, salty snacks, and sugar. In fact, soft drinks alone are the single largest category of SNAP purchases. One more time. Soft drinks alone are the single largest category of SNAP purchases. There is zero nutritional benefit to soda. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. There is zero nutritional value in soda. Pepsi's Frito-Lay division were in 7.2% of all shopping trips paid for with SNAP. So almost 1 in 10, 1 in 13 people that got SNAP, that bought stuff with SNAP had Frito-Lay products in their basket. This is what the free market does. It forces companies to be more efficient, cut prices, and pass savings on to their customers. Zoom out and you can see just how much price inflation in our daily lives is due directly to government spending before we can even get into monetary policy like printing money. This is why I love this article so much, because not only do they focus on the SNAP benefits here, they expand it to government spending broadly. Zoom out and you can see just how much of price inflation in our daily lives is due directly to government spending before we get into money policy and printing. Just look at college tuition. In 1965, Congress passed the Higher Education Act and began backing student loans with federal dollars. I talk about this all the time. Federal loans should not go to higher institutions because the higher institutions don't give a shit anymore how much they can pay or whether or not the students can afford to pay back their loans. They're going to suck off as much funding from the federal government as they possibly can. Since 1965, tuition has risen roughly 3 times faster than inflation. A year at a private university that cost $2,800 in 1963 now costs over $85,000, from $2,863 to $85,000 today. The New York Federal Reserve studied this directly and found that for every dollar increase in subsidized student loans, tuition rose by 60 cents. That's a tax. That's a tax. You borrow $1, tuition goes up 60 cents. This is with everything the government touches. The mechanism is simple. When the government guarantees the tuition money, universities raise prices simply because they can. Healthcare is even worse. Before Medicare and Medicaid were created in 1965, the government's share of health. By the way, who was president in 1965? Think about it. Think about it. 2 things there. 1963, 1965. Who was president? The government's share of healthcare spending was about 31%. Today, it's roughly 64%. Medicaid spending alone has grown from $13 billion in 75 to over $900 billion today. Let me read that again. $13 billion, 1975, $900 billion today. 51 years, $900 billion from $13 billion. And why do we have to spend that much on Medicaid and Medicare? Because we're putting $100 billion into SNAP and we're getting a bunch of people fat and nasty and diabetic and morbidly obese and having a ton of acute disease. And it's insane. We are creating the problem and then trying to throw more money at it to fix it. And shocker, healthcare prices have risen dramatically over the same period. The U.S. now spends nearly $5 trillion per year on healthcare. $5 trillion per year on healthcare, far more per capita than any other developed country, with outcomes that are worse. The pattern is the same everywhere you look. The government shows up with money, prices rise to absorb it, the subsidy becomes permanent. The industry restructures itself around the guaranteed revenue, and then anyone who suggests pulling the money back is accused of cutting a vital service. Just like Ruben Gallego standing in there saying exactly that. You cut SNAP, you stop, you get accountability. He's not even saying abolish SNAP. He's saying, we're saying get accountable for it. Let us audit. Let the Fed audit the SNAP. We're giving you the money. Let us audit it. No, you can't. Of this, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has publicly estimated that 10% of the federal budget, roughly $600 billion per year, is lost to outright fraud of the Somali daycare type in Minnesota. Then there's the legal graft. California alone received roughly $100 billion in federal grants over the past few years for DEI initiatives that produced nothing except more governmental jobs and campaign contributions. There's the key. Campaign contributions. That is the single greatest article that I think I've read in probably 5 years, outside of some election articles. Such a good article, man. Let's talk about this here. Natalie Winters, President Trump, when he gave his election speech, said that we had Chinese authorities that were bribing American corporations and American journalists. And Natalie Winters got to work. Natalie Winters does amazing work. And went and started digging on who these journalists were. And she started looking at trips, looking at writing, and kind of drawing out who these journalists that were in bed with the Chinese and committing treason, in my opinion. This is seditious conspiracy at the very least. Colluding with a foreign state to push a narrative on the American people. That is seditious conspiracy. It says the trips were followed. This includes former journalists from the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, the Washington Post, NPR, the AP, Vox, the Atlantic, no shocker there, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, and other major news organizations. The trips were followed by columns and reports defending Chinese government policies, attacking President Trump's confrontation with Beijing, or presenting the decline of American manufacturing as unavoidable, which Trump is showing right now. It's absolutely not unavoidable. Records identify the following journalists as participants in the QCEF, which is the Chinese-U.S. Economic, what does it stand for? Economic, why didn't I have this? I should have had this. Chinese-United States Exchange Foundation. Exchange, economic. These are participants in QCEF-sponsored delegations, funded trips, or related media exchange programs. Ezra Klein, most recognizable name for me, Vox co-founder and a New York Times columnist. Matthew Iglesias, Ronald Brownstein, Bradford Plumer, Marjorie Miller, Steve Clemens, who was directly involved in the... Or not, excuse me. I think it was his wife, was the Deputy Secretary of State under Biden. Let me see. I have it highlighted down here. No, Stokes, was the wife, the husband of Wendy Sherman, who was the Deputy Secretary of State. Clemens was the one that Biden was literally like, hey, to the Vice President of China. Hey, this is a guy, you need to talk to this guy. You need to talk to this guy, Steve Clemens. David Rode, he's the guy, former New Yorker editor and current MS Now national security reporter. He's the guy that came out with the expose before President Trump gave the election speech. He's the one who was putting it all out there beforehand. So just great work by Natalie Winters uncovering that. It takes a lot of investigative journalism right there to start putting all that stuff together. Probably had some help, perhaps, maybe. But, sometimes you get good sources and you're able to put this stuff out. And you don't have to turn around and say, based on anonymous sources of people familiar with the matter. So, Medbeds, I am not going to read that, but I probably agree with you, sir. Oh man, that's rich right there, dude. I'm not gonna read that. Okay, let's get into the meat of it, man. And this is why I really feel like we're turning the page here a little bit, and I'm optimistic about what's going on right now. And yeah, man, I'm very bullish on everything. I think for the first time in a long time, I'm looking at what's going on and I'm saying, I can see where this is going. It's just, you got to have patience. Before we do that, guys, let's go ahead and hit a sponsor here. You guys have probably noticed that Rumble is not slowing down. More creators, more content, a platform that's actually putting users and free speech first. And if you're watching here regularly, there's a way that you can upgrade your entire experience. Right now, Rumble is running a limited time summer sale on Rumble Premium, and its lowest price ever. Lowest price they've ever offered, guys, right now. Support Rumble, man. Great platform. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content that you actually came for. Plus, you unlock exclusive content from top creators like Steven Crowder, Dr. Disrespect, special live events, and more that you won't see anywhere else. And here's the deal. Normally, Rumble Premium is $99 a year, but during this summer sale, you can lock it in for just $69 per year for life. For life. Not just 1 year, every year. You stay subscribed, you keep that $69 rate. No promo code, no extra steps. Just go to rumble.com/premium, and the summer sale price is already applied. Again, that's rumble.com/premium to lock in the lowest price Rumble's ever offered. Ad-free, exclusive content, and a price that never goes back up, but only if you grab it before the summer sale ends. Love Rumble. Appreciate that. Been here for 6 years now, and they've been fantastic. Okay, so let's get into this here. My highlights disappeared on that as well. There they are, bringing them back. So we finally got the Biden tapes, and we're not going to go through all the content of them. I will play with just one clip that I think is very interesting, but I want to talk about what I think these tapes are going to mean as we go forward. So the interview occurred in 2016 and 2017. Special Counsel Robert Hur, of course, declined to prosecute Biden for mishandling of classified information because he determined that a jury was unlikely to convict Biden because he presented as, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. The extent of Biden's disclosure of classified information is much more egregious than previously disclosed by Hur. At several points, Biden references the information he is reviewing as likely classified, followed by significant audio redactions for classified information. Audio redactions. Telling this to somebody without a clearance, but we can't hear it. This was not just once or twice. These classified redactions cover significant portions of the audio files released. The silence of the redactions loudly demonstrates that Biden knowingly and willfully disclosed classified information to his ghostwriter. Biden disclosed classified CIA, Department of Defense, and other serious national security information to his ghostwriter as part of the process of writing his book. And here it is right here. Biden saying, John at the CIA said, redacted. Well, why is it redacted for us, but not for Zonwitzer? Zonwitzer says, John Brennan? Biden confirms, John Brennan. Okay. It goes on from there. This was a big meeting with the CIA, and everyone on it was that the July meeting? I don't know. It looks like it is. It says it changed pens, so it's got to be after the 17th of June. And then there's a long meeting where DOD brief at DOD POTUS, Air Force 2. I may be on Air Force 2 at 2:30 p.m., and then a whole bunch of more redactions. Now, again, I'm going to stress this again because I think, and I said this last week when we were talking about all of this last week, I think this is the most significant part of this entire thing, and it's this question right here. Within 6 months of leaving office as vice president, not president, so this is 2017, within 6 months of leaving office, either Biden's decline was already so progressed that he didn't recognize the limitations of sharing extensive classified information, some of it highly compartmentalized national security information, or his decline was well underway already in early 2017. 3 years before he would, quote unquote, become POTUS. 4 years, actually. 4 years. 2021, January 2021, he was, quote unquote, officially sworn in. So either he didn't recognize the limitations of sharing extensive classified information, a guy that's been in the Senate for 50 years. He brags about that all the time. I've been here 5 decades, 50 years. Vice president. Didn't know that he's not allowed to share classified information with somebody that doesn't have a security clearance. Didn't know that he's not allowed to bring that information home. I don't think so. I don't think so. So he either did it willingly or his cognitive decline. Either way, it calls into question his entire quote unquote presidency. Biden was already demonstrating significant cognitive decline. Biden references his confused state of mind on many days. Clearly, he was experiencing good days and bad days as far back as 2017. From forgetting the name of Congressman Jim Clyburn to multiple statements of, "I'm so confused and I can't remember," it was clear that Biden was not sharp in 2017. Still, 3 years before they would run him, 4 years before he would, quote-unquote, become SCROTUS. The 2017 audio previously proves why his campaign used the cover of COVID to hide Biden in the basement, because if he was forced to speak in public and off cuff throughout the campaign, Biden's cognitive decline would have been as obvious as it was in the debate with President Trump in 2024. The entire Biden White House orchestrated a willful cover-up of the fact that the American people, when they tried to discredit the Hur report in 2024. Now, Jeff Clark, Vice President of Litigation for the Oversight Project, goes on to say Biden clearly gave away secret after secret to someone not authorized to hold such secrets, and he did so for personal and family profit to the tune of $8 million. Perhaps why he needed a new book? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Let's play this clip here because I want to show you guys, and the content of it is not really that relevant, but listen to this.
The whole class, and they came to the White House, and the president came down, I believe, and spent some time with them. And just like last year, at the end of the year.
Oh, sorry, it cut out here. Oh, wait, no, it didn't. It's still running. So at 40 seconds, it cuts out. Why did it cut out? Because we're at 40 seconds right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. We're at 2 minutes now, still cut out. 2:41, still cut out. 3:03, still cut out. 3:10, still cut out. 3:21, still cut out. 3:30, cut out. Back on the record at 3:45. So you have 3 minutes of redacted statements that Joe Biden, quote unquote Joe Biden, is making in that moment right there. This is not a well-meaning, sympathetic, elderly, whatever with a poor memory. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is. In which case, he never should have been a candidate for POTUS, and he never should have been, quote unquote, SCROTUS. He never should have been. So again, I think this is all building up, and this is why I'm a little bit confident here. I do want to remind you guys, and we won't get too crazy into this because I did talk about this and read a lot from it on Daily. But this was CNN back in 2024. Oliver Darcy, frustrated White House sends letter to the press corps skewering coverage of Biden's handling of classified files. Ian Sams, the White House Correspondents Association, sent a letter to the White House Correspondents Association as spokesperson for the White House counsel's office, expressing concern over how the news media was covering special counsel Robert Hur's report on Joe Biden. They were trying to influence the media. The White House was sending a letter to news agencies. When they talk about President Trump and they say, Trump is a free and fair press is the most important thing we have. This is the White House's counsel, their attorneys, sending letters to news saying, hey, you guys are not covering this Robert Hur report fairly. I think they're covering it. I thought they were covering it very fairly. Not fair enough, actually, because then we saw the debate just a short term later. Let's see. This was February, I think. Yeah, so February, March, April, May, June. So 4 months later, we get that debate that would ultimately lead to Joe Biden stepping away and handing the reins without a vote to Kamala Harris. Didn't resign from the presidency, quote unquote presidency, but resigned from the campaign. 4 months after Ian Sams is out there sending this letter to everybody saying things like this. Hur did not state that the investigation uncovered evidence Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials. But importantly, Hur then went on to write, we conclude that the evidence does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not a special investigation, a special counsel's job. Their job is not to determine beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what a court does. That's what a jury does in a courtroom. Special counsel doesn't do that. I mean, these are attorneys. They should know that, right? They should understand that. So I think there's a clear point that's being made with this, that that Joe Biden was not there. And I think that's where they're going. I don't think they're going to push harder on he had the classified documents, he should be charged with that. But I think they are going to delegitimize Joe Biden, not just because of his cognitive decline, but also because of the stolen 2020 election. And we'll get to that. Okay, let's jump into this article from Fox News. This exposed Fauci diary shows that he estimated COVID-19 death rate to be much lower than what he told Congress. So Fauci testified back in March of 2020 that the death rate was going to be around 2 to 3%. But just a couple weeks before that, he had said the death rate's probably closer to 0.1 to 0.2%. Let me make sure I'm citing that correctly, those numbers. .2 to 0.3 rather than 2%, I should say. Okay, so 0.2 to 0.3 versus 2 to 3%. That is a big, big difference. That is a tenfold difference. That is the difference between 1 in 100 people dying and 1 in 10 people dying. 1 in 100, 1 in 10. You go to tell somebody, hey, 1 in 10 people are going to die from this, chances are they're not going to do it. You tell somebody 1 in 100 are going to die from this, and it's something that has to be done, maybe they're going to do it. Maybe they're going to do it. But that's not even the numbers. So the numbers actually, if you want to qualify it using the numbers here, at 0.2%, it would be 2 people out of 1,000. Yeah, it'd be 2 people out of 1,000 versus 2 people out of 100. So you go to somebody and you're like, hey, you have to live, right? You have to be able to live. Going to your job, if you get COVID, remember, that's the other important thing here that people don't think about. Well, there's a 2% fatality rate. That means if I go to work, there's a 2% chance I'm going to die. No. That's only if you get COVID and if you have non-asymptomatic COVID. Again, I'm being very facetious in how I say if you get COVID. I thought the whole thing was a fucking scam, period. But when they say 2% mortality rate, that's only if you actually get it. So going about your daily life, what's the percentage chance that you're going to actually get it? That might be 2%. So anyways, you tell somebody, hey, if you do get COVID, if you go about your daily life and you go to work and you make a living and you earn a living, you go to school, you carry on, if you do get COVID, there's a 2 in 100% chance you could die. And people might be like, well, that's kind of risky. But if you go and you're like, if you do all these things and you get COVID, there's a 2 in 1,000 chance that you die. They'd probably be like, okay, I'm gonna go about my life. I'm gonna go about my life. So stupid, man. Never forgive these people, man. Just the news here. Fauci, vast majority of scientists he consulted, did not believe in the wet market COVID origin theory. And right here he says it. Fauci's personal notes recount the phone call that eventually produced the proximal origin paper, which concluded natural origin was the only credible explanation for COVID's emergence. However, only 2 out of a dozen scientists on the call were, quote, sure that this could occur naturally and we should not waste our time and divert effort to pursue this, Fauci said. Goes on to say, according to Fauci, quote, the rest felt that deliberate insertion was possible. And given the fact that Dr. Zheng Li-Shi, the bat lady at Wuhan, had been working for years in gain of function with Ralph Barrick, in gain of function in coronavirus, to allow adaptation of the spike protein to bind to the human ACE2 receptor, we could not let this go. So again, I played the clip. Let me see if I have this clip. I don't have the Trump clip. But you had, on Daily this week, I played the clip where President Trump is out there saying, yeah, this came from a lab. This came from a lab in China, in Wuhan. And then literally a couple minutes later, Fauci comes out and says, no, it came from its natural origin. We have genealogists, epidemiologists, whatever, that tracked the genealogy. That's what I should say. That tracked the genealogy of the bats. And it came from the bats. It came from the bats. We tracked it thousands of years, the evolution of the bat. And we determined that it came from the bat. Meanwhile, that's only what 2 people out of 12 thought. The rest were like, yo. And this goes back to the, remember the Jon Stewart? The pangolin kissed a bat. We should find that. I know a lot of people don't like Jon Stewart, but let me see if I could find this, because this was prophetic. Well, it wasn't prophetic. We were saying this for a long time. Let me see if we can find it. I mean, this is kind of worth playing.
Hey, Ray. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, here's the thing. This is what I know about you. This is what I know about you.
By the way, Stephen Colbert is the fag that had the vaccines and all the dancing and all that shit.
We are truly dear friends, and yet this is the first.
Oh, really happy. And I know we're all vaccinated, and I'm not going to get COVID, but I'm going to get something. I'm honestly, these people did not take good care. To science. Science has, in many ways, helped ease the suffering of this pandemic, which was more than likely caused by science. So,
there it is.
And that's kind of.
Hold on a second.
No. Listen.
It's coffee. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you.
What
do you mean by that? Do you mean like perhaps there was a chance that this was created in a lab? There's an investigation.
A chance?
Well,
oh my
if there was evidence, I'd love to hear it.
There's a novel respiratory coronavirus overtaking Wuhan, China. What do we do? Oh, you know who we could ask? The Wuhan Novel Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. That's just a little too weird, don't you think? And then they ask the scientists, they're like, how did this... So wait a minute, you work at the Wuhan Respiratory Coronavirus Lab. How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle. And you're like, no, the name of your lab. If you look at the name, let me see your business card. Show me your business card. Oh, I work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Oh, because there's a coronavirus loose in Wuhan. How did that happen? Maybe a bat flew into the cloaca of a turkey and then it sneezed into my chili and now we all have coronavirus. Like, come on.
All right, we can stop that there. The point I'm making with this, and let me see, this was, let me get the exact date on this. It says it was 5 years ago, so this was June 15th, 2021. So this is more than a year after the pandemic. Vaccines are rolled out, everything is out there. And now all of a sudden, Colbert is like, well, let me have Jon Stewart on. And that skit is known. Like Jon Stewart did not, I don't believe Jon Stewart went on there and just like blindsided Stephen Colbert with this theory. That was when it became okay to start affirming what the conspiracy theorists had been saying since April of 2020, since March of 2020. I had friends telling me in January of 2020, watch out for this COVID thing, UNC. I'll never forget a buddy of mine. His name's Andrew, and I won't say more. Marine buddy, 0311, fellow 03. I haven't talked to him in years. But back then, he sends me this thing on Facebook Messenger, 2020. Okay, because I'm doing my podcast. I'm not doing anything crazy. I don't have a big following. I've maybe got 1,000 followers. But he sends me this thing for UNC. UNC, I don't remember if it was Chapel Hill, but it's like a research paper. And he's like, bro, you got to read this. And this is when you're starting to get a little bit of talk about coronavirus in COVID in Wuhan, in China. It doesn't even have the COVID-19 name yet. It's just a coronavirus, a novel coronavirus. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it. So he sends this to me, and it's 2 pages, and I read it. And I'm like, okay, what's this? It's like, bro, that's everything. Like, what are you talking about? It's 2 pages of just talking about a novel coronavirus. It's nothing serious. He's like, dude, it's the gain of function research, and it's them moving this and taking the spike protein and all this stuff. And I'm like, none of that's in this research paper. And he goes and he clicks on it, and he's like, bro, that page was 80 pages long. 80 pages long. They completely scrubbed that document from their archives. And that was January of 2020, I believe. That is when I was like, okay, we're about to get the hose. We're about to get the hose again. So when Stephen Colbert has Jon Stewart on, and Jon Stewart's kind of like the rogue establishment guy, right? He's the guy that does like the things that everybody is like, oh, he's so based. And then he says something, and they're like, fuck Jon Stewart, right? I just think he's funny. I'm not going to lie. I think Jon Stewart's hilarious. I've liked him for a long time. He was great in Big Daddy with Adam Sandler. Like he's the adopted kid's dad. He was great in that. I've always thought he's funny. I don't agree with him politically. He says the base things every once in a while, but he's the guy. He's like Fetterman, except he's funny. Fetterman's not funny. Fetterman's like funny, but not like in a kind of sick and shouldn't really be laughing kind of way. Like don't laugh at them, laugh with them, like that kind of way. But Fetterman's gonna be right there soon. And he's going to have his kind of, he's going to be the totally base Democrat. Why don't you just become a Republican? And then he's going to become a Republican, and he's going to start saying things, and people are going to be like, yo, I don't agree with that. Can you go back to saying the totally base things about immigration? And can you go back to saying those things? Because he came out the other day, he's like, Pennsylvania doesn't have illegals on their voter rolls. Pennsylvania doesn't have illegal voting. There's no election fraud. He says all those things. Israel's the best. We need everybody to go. And again, this is where the conservative Judeo-Christians, that construct, that comes into play there with them. But you get my point. You get my point. Stewart was the guy at that moment that goes on Colbert, who has been the guy that had freaking retards wearing syringe outfits going out there and doing the cucaracha or whatever. What song was it? Vaccines. Da 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 da. Remember that? He did that. And everybody's out there. You got these women in syringe costumes dancing, and this little dancing cartoon on the bottom. Get your vaccines. That was him like 3 months before Jon Stewart comes on there and is like, yo, you fucking retards. It was created in the Wuhan lab. You guys bought this. Anyways, to bring this all back, tequila, there we go. Vaccine. To bring this all back full circle, I want to bring it back to and land it back on Fauci. He knew two people are like proximal origin. Natural. Genealogy, bats, pangolins, kissing, turkeys, all that stuff. Everybody else was like, yo, the Wuhan lab right there. And the audacity of Fauci to come out right after President Trump sided with the 10 others. And I wonder if President Trump was privy to that phone call, by the way. I wonder if President Trump knew about that phone call, because that changes everything. If Trump knew about the dozen scientists that Fauci was on that phone call with, and Fauci took the minority, not even a minority opinion, 1 in 6. The other 5 believe it could have come from Wuhan and needs to be investigated. And the 1 person out of 6, I'm breaking 2 out of 12 down to 1 in 6. I'm reducing the fraction. 1 out of 6 said proximal origin, and Fauci hammered us, silenced us on X, on YouTube, on every social media platform except Rumble. If you dared say it came from the Wuhan lab on YouTube or on any other platform, you got banned. And that was 1 out of 6 scientists that believed that. Think about that. Think about that. Did Trump know about that phone call? That question just popped into my head here. Did Trump know about that phone call? And if Trump goes out there and says 5 out of 6 scientists, he didn't say 5 out of 6, but Trump says it likely came from Wuhan, a lab in China, it's a China virus, blah, 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 and then Fauci comes over the top of him based on 1 in 6, that is insubordination. That is insubordination. And it's insubordination to a president. And, you know, I would make the argument that you cannot pardon that. Because it's a crime. Insubordination is a crime, by the way. Just throwing this out there. In government service, insubordination is a crime. You could even go as far as seditious conspiracy because you use that information to lock down the country. I mean, not specifically that information. It'd be hard to say that the origin of the disease was used to lock down the country. But it's definitely insubordination. Now, can another president come behind and say, hey, you were insubordinate to my predecessor, so I'm going to pardon you for that? I don't think so. I think the only person that should be able to pardon him for that is the person that he was insubordinate to. Novel theory. We're just spitballing here. Don't take that too seriously. Don't take that too seriously. But it definitely deserves a discussion. I mean, I don't know where it goes with that. Tony is a superior game caller. I am a lifetime Packer fan. I know the game. He is great. Wave the flag. Are you making fun of me? Oh, because I'm a lifetime Packer fan. And I know the game. And Tony is great. Wave the flag. I don't know. Oh, man. And you're so far behind. Oh, man. I almost got to respond. I got to respond there. So, because I don't know where we're going with that. He's talking about the Romo clip, so he's way behind. But I'm also a lifetime Packer fan, and I love Tony Romo as an announcer. What do the Packers even pack anyways? Acme Packing, man. Acme Packing Co. They actually don't pack cheese. This is like a question. It was I think it's actually meat, isn't it? Meat packing, yeah. The Green Bay Packers are named after the Indian Packing Company, a local meat packing firm that provided financial scholarships for the team's formation. Yeah, it was meat packing. I don't know where the cheesehead comes from. I guess, because of Wisconsin, I guess, but yeah, I knew it was meat packing. I was questioning myself because I don't want to sound stupid when you're talking to 1,000 people. Okay, so let's keep going here. Let's play this clip here. I'm probably going to step away for a second. I got to get some more water. But I know this clip, so I'm going to play this clip, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about it with you.
He was given a pardon prospectively from the last administration. We don't know if it was an auto pen pardon. It doesn't really matter for legality purposes. But Americans want to know, a lot of them, is there going to be any accountability for trillions of dollars lost, children's education destroyed, and public health industry reputation shattered?
Yeah, and millions of people injured. He lied about masks, he lied about social distancing, he lied about the transmission, he lied about natural immunity. He lied about the capacity, as you just said, of the vaccine to prevent infection, to prevent it. He got vaccinated, a very, very public press conference in January of 2020. And then 5 months later, he had, and this is the first time that we knew this from the diary, he had a pulmonary infarction, which is one of the adverse events that NIH, CDC, and FDA said are expected from the vaccine. He never told anybody. He got treated for it privately by the best doctors in America. At the same time, he was telling everybody that that was not an adverse event.
That's sick, man. That's sick. He's getting treated by the best doctors in America and telling everybody that this is not a side effect. It's safe and effective. Well, he got hauled in front of Congress, in front of the Senate to testify. And of course, you know, despite having the pardons and, you know, whether or not he was, you know, allowed to, you know, whether or not he was going to be required to testify, he still anyways chose to plead the fifth.
Although it pains me to do so because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
And there it was. They got a lot of good questions. I mean, I'm not going to go through and unhash all those. You know, there was a lot of good questions that were asked, and I would have loved to have heard answers. It's questionable about whether or not he could plead the fifth. Now, before the hearing, the day before, on Tuesday, I said, I didn't say that he was going to plead the fifth. I said I hope it gets canceled because I don't want him to go in there and testify and then find out later that his testimony would have to be thrown out because his pardons were ruled null and void. But there was a moment here that was very interesting, and this is where his attorney gets thrown out.
But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Oh, here's the moment. Yep, there's the moment. There's the moment. They gave him the moment. They gave him the moment. One side will go one way, the other side will go another way. Oh, they never should have removed the attorneys. The other side will say they had to remove him. He was being disorderly and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? What a dog and pony show. What a dog and pony show.
Without consequences. If you go back, and I ask anybody to go back over the number of times that I've said we've got to do everything we can to keep the schools open, no one plays that clip. They always come back and say Fauci was responsible for closing schools. I had nothing to do. I mean, let's get down.
Fauci had nothing to do with closing the schools. His diary tells a different story. Dear diary, I spoke. Let's do the dramatic reading. That's a good idea, Brian. See, sometimes I have a good idea. Dear diary, I spoke with Bill de Blasio and convinced him, based on what I was saying publicly and my conversation tonight, to close the New York City schools. He had already decided based on what I was saying on TV. I went on to tell him he should close the bars and restaurants in New York City. He said that he would base this on my recommendation. Here's another one. Dear diary, Governor Cuomo calls me up and asks my advice on whether to close schools in the Orthodox Jewish section of Westchester, where they have 90 cases, more than the rest of New York City. I tell him yes. He also asks about closing subways. I tell him not yet, but let us stay tuned. Dear diary, I had a similar call with Ann O'Leary, the chief of staff of Governor Gavin Newsom of California. Ann said that based on my TV appearances today and yesterday, the governors decided to close the schools in California, as well as the bars and restaurants. When I left the White House, and this is completely outside of the schools thing, this is just to show you what an egotistical prick Anthony Fauci is. When I left the White House and crossed Pennsylvania and 17th Street, several cars honked their horns and shouted, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," out the window. He is such a little shit. Dear Diary came out with the guidelines that reflected my pushing for a more aggressive mitigation 15-day strategy. If you are elderly, self-isolate, do not congregate in groups of more than 10 people. Stay away from bars, restaurants, theaters, sporting events. If a community has spread close to the bars, restaurants, and places of congregation. Close schools where there is community spread. Close schools where there is community spread. Close schools where there is community spread. No visitors to nursing homes. If a family member is sick, others in the family should take extra precautions. Only necessary travel. Telework as much as possible. Let's just play that clip again.
Can to keep the schools open. No one plays that clip. They always come back and say Fauci was responsible for closing schools. I had nothing to do. I mean, let's get down to the.
So he started out decent with that. He's like, they say Fauci is responsible for closing the schools. Well, you should have left it there because technically he's not. Trump took the federal. If Trump was funny, he said, I took the federalist approach. No, you took the anti-federalist approach, Mr. President. But we get what he meant. And he said he left it up to the state governors. So technically, if Fauci would have stopped it right there and said, I was not responsible for closing down the schools, he'd be technically correct. The governors themselves did it. But then he qualifies it and says, I had nothing to do with it. But then we see de Blasio, we see Cuomo, we see Newsom, all saying, we decided to close the schools based on what you were saying. I had nothing to do with it. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You were going out there and you were fear-mongering people with 1 in 6 scientists, by the way, while the other 5 were like, Wuhan came from the lab, and he's like, no, proximal origin. How much other shit did they lie about? I mean, we haven't seen the PCR test come back around yet. We haven't seen Kerry Mullis's clip played in a long time. I want to see that played for Fauci. Play that for Fauci. That's what they should. You know, oh my God, if they wanted to crush Fauci, that's how you crush Fauci. Play the clips of Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, saying that Fauci is fundamentally retarded. Like Fauci doesn't know what he's doing. Those clips exist. We should make those clips go viral again. Somebody post those clips and tag me in it. Meanwhile, this is they're going to throw this at President Trump. This is put out by Patriot Control on X. How Trump's push to reopen schools backfired. Trump calls COVID school closures a terrible decision as cases and deaths rise. Normally, people don't play with kids' lives. Trump's push to reopen schools becomes another partisan fight. Trump leans on schools to reopen as virus continues its spread. Trump insists schools must open in the fall, says he'll put pressure on the governors to do so. Trump pushes and threatens in bid to fully reopen schools. Trump campaign to open schools provokes mounting backlash even from the GOP. It wasn't just Fauci, to be fair. It wasn't just Fauci. The people themselves, or the news media themselves, were complicit in this. Let's play this clip because this is I love this clip so much. This is my brother from another mother of another color. Love this man for this clip.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot or a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And not
It's
like
much more serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually, too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States?
Fauci says it right there. How many people died from the flu this year? Well, not this year, last year. Virtually none died this year. Oh, that's because they were all COVID deaths.
600,000 Americans.
The number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pay
based?
Yeah, definitely. Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on.
There's something else.
You're right. But I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an incentive. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. But I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive, y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all.
Let's go. That dude. Get that dude a Nobel Prize. Get that dude a Nobel Prize. All right. Let's stay on the pandemic. Let's go ahead and let's hit another sponsor here, though, before we move on. Guys, we hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part that most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks so that instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you are in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you've felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today, and everybody's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels kind of complicated. That's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all that complexity and makes it simple. You get to choose what you want, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. There's no complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code, or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and boom, you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. All right. Thank you to Rumble Wallet. Let's keep moving. Here is Senator Ron Johnson in another stand-up moment in the hearing. This is probably my favorite moment, to be honest with you.
I've got the studies right here. There was a website that was tracking the random controlled studies. Here they are, showing 60, 70% efficacy of ivermectin. The same day you say there's no evidence, there was all kinds of evidence. Loved ones had to go to hospitals, had to sue hospitals. Just, would you try it? So I would want to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and did you do that because you knew the only way you get an emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapy, was if there was no effective treatment, you couldn't get the emergency use authorization. So is that why you helped sabotage these cheap generic drugs in favor of remdesivir, which, by the way, nurses, are you aware of the fact that nurses called it run, death is near?
On the advice of counsel, all
right, so we can land that there. Spot on. Spot on. Let me see if I can find real quick my article that I wrote about this. Let me see if I can find this. Because Senator Johnson's spot on. He's spot on. This happened all over the country. No, I can't find it. I talked about the Texas sheriff. what happens if I search Texas sheriff? Stand by. Stand by. Did I write it on my Substack? I might have wrote it on my Substack. Oh, wait, maybe here it is. Nope. Okay, can't find it. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here it is. Oh, shit. Here's the story. This was back in December of 2021. And this was by Kevin Monclub, my friend. That's who it was. Okay, so that's how I knew, because he knew him. But yeah, this was a story where they fought them. They fought them in the appellate court. They fought them because they sued so that they could treat the husband who was in the ICU with ivermectin. The hospital or the court said, yes, you have to let him. The hospital, before doing the treatment, the hospital turned around and appealed that decision. Spent a bunch of money to appeal that decision. And the wife went in there and snuck in the ivermectin anyways. And he went from the ICU to waking up and being okay. And so, again, just looking at all of this, for those of you who have been with me for a while, you guys know when I used to do the shows before Badlands, when I used to do shows, when I was when I was banned from YouTube and everything else, I used to start every single show. By showing VAERS. Well, not every single show, but most of the shows. I would start by showing the VAERS, Open VAERS report. I'd go to openvaers.com and show you guys how many deaths there are. And the spikes, I don't know if Open VAERS is still up and running. Yeah, it is. Okay. Let's see if I can show you guys. So this is what I used to show on my show. This is openvaers.com. And oh, there we go. All right, we don't need to be zoomed in that much. All reports to VAERS by year. So the red is VAERS, all VAERS report. The blue is the U.S. and our territories. And so you can see Open VAERS, which, that's where doctors and hospitals report vaccine adverse events to. All the way up until 2020, there were only 57,000 in 2020. 57,000. 2021, 1.06 million. 57,000, 1.06 million. 2022, 526,000. 2023, 157,000. 86,000. We're finally starting to slow down. 56,000. We're finally back online with 2020. And all the way in 2025. And at this point, who knows if, because we're 5 years removed from the quote unquote pandemic and the vaccination of the experimental COVID vaccine, maybe they just don't even dub it that anymore. But let's look at deaths. Mortality. There we go. Look at deaths. All reported deaths to VAERS by year. And in 2020, they had all non-COVID vaccine deaths, 402. Reports of deaths, 421 in 2020. In 2021, 22,223. 523 non-COVID deaths. So the non-COVID vaccine deaths are tracking. It's interesting that they added that to all of these now. Let's see, 604, 421, 402. Oh, so the death started in 2020. Look at that. That is nuts. Look at this. I didn't realize this. 2020, non-COVID deaths. Oh, let me move my camera for a second here. 2020, non-COVID deaths, 402. Non-COVID vaccine deaths in 2020. But 2020, reports of deaths, 421. Were there 19 deaths in 2020? From the vaccine? if that's the case, those almost had to be like tests. That's crazy. I never noticed that until just now. I think that's new. I haven't been on that website in a long time. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping up the COVID part here, and the Fauci part and the Biden part, and I think it all ties together. And let me see if I've got the where is the hold on, I got to play this clip because this is a very important clip. Here it is. Okay, I have to play this because this has a lot of people pissed off. And there are a lot of people who feel like President Trump is betraying them because he's not going after, or they think he's not going after Fauci.
Dr. Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times today. Rand Paul said he's going to hold a vote on holding him in contempt of Congress. Do you think Dr. Fauci should face repercussions for this?
Well, I watched the whole thing today, but more importantly, I was a part of the whole Fauci. I inherited Fauci. He was here from the 1980s, so I had him for a period of time. And I disagreed with him on a lot. I would have had to close down the whole country if I listened to him. I went the Federalist way, which is basically to let the governors decide. And generally speaking, the Republican governors did very well. The Democrat governors did not very well. But Fauci wanted to have nobody wearing masks, if you remember, and then everybody had to wear 5 masks, as many masks as you could get. I mean, he made a lot of mistakes, and he wasn't a big factor for me. He was a very big factor for Biden. And if you remember, even though we were sort of prime time in terms of that whole disaster of COVID, far people died, fewer in the Trump administration than in the Biden administration. We ran it well. Operation Warp Speed was talked about as being one of the great success stories anywhere in the world, actually. And we did a good job. But many more people died under Biden than died in the Trump administration from COVID. COVID was a disaster, but Fauci did not help.
Do you think that the DOJ should reopen the investigation into the auto pen, specifically pertaining to Fauci?
Well, the only thing you can really think about is the auto pen, because the most powerful thing a president has, they say, is the power of pardon. So he was pardoned by Biden, and I respect that. I know how powerful it is. It's a very powerful, they say it's literally the most powerful thing a president has. Now, whether or not I signed my...
That's kind of interesting that it's the most powerful thing that a president has as we're sitting here in war with Iran, quote unquote war with Iran, and there's all these talks of nuclear weapons, and you would think a nuclear weapon would be the most powerful thing. Or
things directly, always, almost everything I signed directly. You're witness to many of them. He signed very few. The only thing I know that he signed was Hunter Biden's pardon, but I'm not sure that he signed. He probably didn't sign this one. So I can't tell you what the law is. I've heard that you have to have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things that the person operating the auto pen has to know exactly what it's all about. He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify. So maybe there's something on the auto pen. Other than that, the power of pardon is very powerful.
So everybody's freaking out because he says in the beginning, I respect the power of pardon. And he's right. The power of the pardon is a very powerful thing. But he's not saying that he's going to respect the pardon and give up that fight. At the end, he says, listen to what he says at the end. Listen to what he says at the very end.
Have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things that he probably didn't sign. This one. So I can't tell you what the law is. I've heard that you have to have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things that the person operating the auto pen has to know exactly what it's all about.
Okay, so he's saying that you need all these things to show that the auto pen is legit. He's not saying that, in order to overturn the auto pen, we need all these things. He's saying you need all of these things to legitimize the use of the auto pen. You need letters. You need intent. You need something showing that Joe Biden actually knew himself, not his inner circle, that this was the case.
He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify.
He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify. And this didn't hit me until I think it was Alpha. I think it was Alpha that explained this or had the take on it. When he says I saw him testify, immediately I was like, well, did Joe Biden have like some secret testimony that we don't know about? Maybe he meant not the deposition, but the deposition with Robert Hur, but also the Zwanitzer tapes that are now public, which was the subject of the deposition. That could be considered testimony. And so when he says he didn't know what was going on, I saw him testify. That to me doesn't tell me that Trump is saying I respect the pardon, we're going to let it go. No, he's saying I respect the power of pardon, but I'm not letting this go. Because I saw him testify. He did not know what was going on, and they would have to have letters and all sorts of things to validate the use of that auto pen. So I respect the power of the pardon, but I'm not letting this go. And the last thing he says right here.
So maybe there's something on the auto pen. Other than that, the power of pardon is very powerful.
So he's saying maybe there's something on the auto pen, but other than that, the power of pardon is very powerful. So he's saying that if Joe Biden, if they can prove that this auto pen was legit, then yeah, the pardon is what it is what it is. But he's saying the auto pen, the only one that I know he signed was Hunter Biden's, and he said that many, many times. Many, many times. The only one I know that he signed was Hunter Biden's. And that, I'm telling you guys, I think that a lot of people are dooming out over that statement, and I think that statement is very good for everything. All right, I think I'm going to land this here. I've still got, dude, like, I'll just give you guys a little peek. Look at all the tabs still up there at the top that I still have to go through. So I'm going to break this. I'm going to do something I've never done before and break this week in review up into 2 episodes, because I'm gassed already, man. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm pretty gassed. So I'm going to save what I've got now, break it up into another episode. I'll jump in the chat here for just a second, see what's going on. Guys, by the way, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so. If you're watching on Rumble, smash that thumb. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that thumb. If you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Same with Rumble, turn on the notifications. It helps me out. It helps me out quite a bit. Wow, we got 800 people watching over here on YouTube. On Rumble. And what do we got on YouTube? I got to go check out my YouTube friends. What do we got on YouTube? If you're watching, there we go. Let's see, 76 on YouTube. Okay, that's not bad. Could be better. But share it out, guys. I mean, it's very, very difficult to grow platforms right now because a lot of people are trying to censor a lot of this stuff. You know, me and Alpha on Thursday were talking about it, and I've been trying to get a little bit of attention, from Rumble. I mean, I've been with Rumble since the beginning. I've been with Rumble since before the YouTube bans. I started with Rumble. I had like 20 followers, and I was streaming to one person. And if you go back to the beginning of my content, let me see. Let's go back to the beginning of my content. We go all the way back to the beginning. I think some of it's taken down, but go all the way back. I did take a little bit of it, some of it. I archived it. I didn't take it down, but let's go all the way back to the very beginning. We're on 24 pages, 25 pages, 26, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 pages, 35 pages, 36 pages. Holy shit. Okay, so 37 is where it ends. So 37 pages. Look at this. 104 views. 178 views. This was like OG CannCon. Look at that.
A whole lot going on in the, well, there actually is a whole lot going on in the news today, but it's not anything 190,000 indefinitely confined that need to be gone over individually. If I was the attorneys litigating whatever case they're...
Look at that. Look at that. That's old school CannCon right there. My point is that I've been here with Rumble forever. Forever. That was in 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And when you go to Rumble's homepage, and I mean, when you go to Rumble's homepage, can I get a premiere? Hey, Rumble, can I get a premiere? No, you've got this guy with 2.52 thousand followers. 2.5 thousand followers. Playing video games. You've got that guy there. 222 followers. She's premiered. 222 followers. This guy's got 2,000 followers. Premiered. Here's another one. 39 followers. Premiered. Rumble, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing, Rumble? What are you doing? You've got 4 gaming platforms with a combined total of 5,000 followers. And that's what you're premiering on a Saturday morning. What are you doing? I'm sorry. I've been on Rumble for a long time. I'm venting right now, Rumble. I'm venting right now. I've been doing this show for, I don't know, 4 months now, 5 months now. Every Saturday, except, you know, when my stepdad passed away. New K's, Brian, it's a small club and you ain't in it. Yeah, you're spot on. Spot on. Rise Attire, I think they're helping smaller channels get discovered. You've got 4 gaming channels on right now, premiered. 4 gaming channels. Mix it up a little bit. I got to know the secret Rumble insider handshake, which you do not know clearly. I guess not. They haven't given it to me. They haven't given it to me yet. Is it like one of those, like, I'm not going to say it, but the Illuminati symbols? I don't think so. Rumble's been a great platform, but what the hell, guys? What the hell? See, DJ knows what's up. DJ Silk Farm. I don't blame you, Brian. Your news show is one of the best. Thank you. Make a pilled.net account, Brian. Well, I mean, Rumble, if you're going to keep focusing on 39 follower gaming channels and have 4 gaming channels, 10 Stacks, now you are on to something now, 10 Stacks. I you know what? There's a lot of influence in that regard, man. I'm not going to say that you are wrong on that. There is a ton of shenanigans, we'll just say shenanigans going on with that. I think I saw some rants come in, so let me get into those. And, you know, again, it sucks. I apologize for having to go off on a rant like that, but they sent me an email. Rumble sent me an email, and they're like, hey, do you do any video on demand? You know, what can we help you out with advertisers for video on demand? And I'm like, I don't do a lot of video on demand. I do a lot of live streams, but I would just like to get featured once, man. Like, help me grow my channel, right? Iowa Farming Girl, thank you. Missed most of it, but we'll go back. Thank you, Iowa Farming Girl. Good to see you. Somebody gifted a bunch of memberships, and I closed out the frickin' thing, and so I can't see them. Donations? Oh, there we go. Larry, Snap soda fraud is real. I've seen it work. Buy large quantities of soda on EBT and then sell it back to store. 50 cents on the dollar cash. Wow. Yeah, I don't doubt that stuff happens. I don't doubt that. So, all right, guys, I'm sorry if I came off whiny there, but, you know, it's just, there is no payback for loyalty, man. There's no payback for loyalty. And I've been ridiculously loyal to Rumble. You know, go back and look at like Bahizzi and those guys and ask them. And they still won't go to Rumble. Bahizzi would not go to Rumble when I was trying to get them to switch over. I was like, hey guys, our writing on the wall for YouTube is there. Like, look, we're going to get banned from YouTube. They're censoring everybody. And I was like, you guys want to check out Rumble? And they're like, nah, we're just going to stay here. We tried Locals, and then Locals, got bought out by Rumble, or Rumble bought out Locals, I should say. And that was great. I don't do much with Locals anymore. I have a ton of people that are subscribers over there, and I told people all along, I'll never put my content behind a paywall, like my political content. I do my gaming on premium, but I'll never put it behind a paywall. If you want to become a local subscriber, that's a donation to my work. That's not because you're not going to get any exclusive content. I don't believe in that shit. I try to avoid it like the plague. Sometimes you have to, but yeah, I'm just getting ranty here. So I'll just land it here. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in this morning. Smash that thumbs up, share the show out. Bobu Afu, we appreciate your work. $10 rant. Thank you so much. Kitsko, I will email Rumble as a stockholder on this CannCon. Thank you, Kitsko. There you go. I mean, what is Rumble's email? Like, everybody email Rumble and be like, yo, why do you take a screenshot of the 4 premiered channels right now and be like, why do you not have live channels? And I'm going to raid you guys to somebody. So let me see who else is, because you do have to do raids. So who else is live right now? Let's click on the live and just see who else is live. Because there's, Alex Jones is live. Surprise. The guy that wants to impeach Trump and 25th Trump. Real America's Voice. I don't know if they have anything actually going. RSRT, Newsmax. Hey, there's me right there. And then that's it. So, I mean, look, the Alex Jones, the Real America's Voice, the 24/7 RT, and Newsmax, those are permanent streams. Those are live all the time, no matter what. So out of all of those, you have this one right here, Cammy, the gamer. That's the main video on the homepage. Alex Jones is a permanent live stream. I don't know what this is. This is RT as well. So that's also a permanent live stream. Permanent live stream, permanent live stream, permanent live stream. The next highest viewership is me, as far as not a permanent live stream. And I can't get featured. Can't get featured. I mean, if you want to be YouTube, if you want to be Twitch, if you want to be those other platforms, go for it. But embrace what you are, Rumble. You are a news platform. You are a podcast platform. You're not going to get a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds on Rumble watching video games. Not by throwing it all at once. You're going to disenfranchise a lot of people like myself. That's going to be like, why don't I stop doing us on Rumble and send all my Rumble people over to YouTube? So, when is part 2, Spotsel? So, I will do this. I have a softball game tomorrow. I will try and do it sometime Sunday afternoon. And if I don't, I'll do it Sunday evening. And because I want it, and it's, so the second half is going to be election stuff, because that's the biggest part of the show is election. The remainder of the stuff is election stuff. So I've been wanting to do, let's not call it a part 2. Let's call it my election show, because I covered on Thursday, I covered my CIA note article that I wrote for Gateway last week. Last week, technically. And I tried to cover it on Wednesday with Ash, but it was just too long to cover in a 10-minute segment on Daily. So I didn't really, I felt like it was too rushed. So I want to do it on my own channel where I can sit down and actually go through and talk it out. And I'm not like, I have to do this in 10 minutes. I can do it in an hour or 2 hours. So yeah, definitely subscribe. You know what? Rumble, I'm only going to do this on YouTube. Yep. Screw it. So the exclusive I'm going to do, I'm going to go through my article, go through the news, the election news stories I had for today, and I'm only going to do it on YouTube. You don't want to platform somebody that's been here for 6 years and you want to put a 39 follower channel up on the premiere? Screw you, Rumble. Let's go to war. So go over to YouTube, search at CannCon Actual, and give me a follow over there. And maybe the people over at Rumble will pull their heads out their asses and stop putting 39 follower gaming accounts up on a Saturday morning when I've been doing this for 5 or 6 months now, every single Saturday. All right, guys. YouTube it is. YouTube it is. Stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the deep state motherfuckers pay for this.
Open your eyes to a new world, which never existed.